Welcome back. Just finished up with John Gottfried. Like I said, super. I mean, John Gottfried is great. Hope that John Gottfried runs for governor one day, because I would love to see him be in the governor's office and riding herd on this issue, because this is going to come to a head. Chad, you're right. It's going to get to a point nobody can afford it. And when I say nobody, I also mean the employers. Like, the employers aren't going to be able to afford this. The insured aren't going to be able to afford this. Nobody's going to be able to afford this, and we're going to be left with no choice but to just take it over. And then the government's going to impose prices and impose salaries and everything else. And I don't think, I know a lot of people, advocate for that and want for that. I personally don't want that. That's the path we're on, though.
Yeah, so two things. You're right. We didn't even get into the employer side of this health insurance thing because that's also spiking, right? In addition to those on
I see. I mean, when I go through open enrollment, I mean, one of the things I look at, it's the cost to me
right.
going up. But I don't blame my employer, because I look at their share is going up even more. I mean, it's
The way we
terrible.
do health insurance here is the employer pays a percentage and the employee pays a percentage. So every year the total goes up. We're both paying more, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're both paying more. But I think to your point about even if you're a supporter of getting to Medicare for all or a public system, nobody wants the pain that would take place between today and getting to that system, right? There is going to be a lot of sick people. There's going to be a lot of bankrupt people before we get to that point. So let's fix it right now. And I just want to emphasize for people, John wasn't saying the subsidies are the cure-all for health insurance. He was saying we need these subsidies in place so we have time to have the real conversation, to stop the hurt, to have real
Yeah.
grown conversations.
Let's not brutalize Americans and then create an even more emergent situation we already have, and then try to make super tricky policy decisions in that even more fraught environment. No, let's not do that. The status quo is what it is. It's a sunk cost at this point. We did it. This is where we're at. We have to live with that reality. We could certainly have a good debate about what we do going forward. And the subsidies are unsustainable going forward, but we got to have them for now because we don't have a choice. That's the situation we've put ourselves in.
And the frustration you can hear in his voice around hospitals and healthcare providers not having a willingness to come to the table and have a real conversation that
We talked about being wore out. He
Yeah.
talked about, he's like he's losing steam, like he's done everything he can.
This is where we need the delegation and the governor to put some pressure on these hospitals to get to the table, get something done here. Because ultimately, it's going to be the delegation that gets blamed for high health insurance costs. And if they want this done, I know it's a state level issue, but they can put some pressure on them.
Let's talk a little bit more about the interview with Josh Gallion, because we had him on, and one of the things we pushed him on was the Stark County audit, where he had added some words to Stark County's response, and Stark County disputed that. Now, I ended up having some conversations with some folks in Stark County after that interview, and they absolutely, because he told us during the interview that he had an email that showed that they justified it. Well, he shared that email with me. I shared it with you. I did not see in there where it justified them adding those. And again, I work with quotes. I work with quoting people all the time. If you're going to change a quote or change what somebody said, you had better get explicit. Like, this is what you meant. This is what your words are. And they didn't. The auditor's office didn't do that, and it's part of a pattern of the entities getting audited, saying that they are being treated unfairly. That the findings are at times sensationalized and disseminated to the press before they even get a chance to catch up with it. I'm all for the auditor when finding real things, and if it's embarrassing for the local officials, tough. I don't have a lot of sympathy there, but I am for fairness, and a lot of this just doesn't seem fair, especially what we learned after that interview. I don't think, and I said overall, I think Josh Gallion is a good auditor, but he handles these situations poorly.
Yeah, I kind of like that Josh Gallion pushes pretty hard on these things, but I think the sensationalism is what the problem is here. And
I think it undermines his credibility.
Right. And I think one of the frustrations now looking back at our interview with Josh is one of the biggest things that I think both you and I went into that interview with is we had a real problem with him changing the words. And, I thought about, again, as a private employer, if we had an auditor change, what our response was, we'd fire that auditor. But his response was they agreed to it. I've got an email. They agreed to it. They agreed to it. They agreed to it. And then we see the email afterwards. They didn't
I
really
don't see where
agree
they
to it.
agreed to it, and also, I mean, I spoke with the Stark County auditor, and I
She didn't
spoke with
agree
the
to it.
Stark County Commission, and they're not of the opinion that they agreed to it. And at that point, he should reissue that audit and change it
Right.
because he put words in their mouth that are, and now it's part of the state record that those words are in there that shouldn't be there. And maybe it seems like a small thing, but this is a pattern,
Yeah.
and that's a problem.
And I think you want to have a relationship with your auditor. It doesn't have to be adversarial because I think at the end of the day, I think most elected officials want to figure out if they're doing something wrong and they want to figure out how to fix it. In this case, I think what they were trying to do was the right thing, but it's against the law. And so now they need to figure out how to do the right thing. But rather than talking about that, we're now talking about the fact that Josh's office changed those words and created a situation where they're not working for a solution. There's just conflict.
Well, we've been critical of Josh. Now let's praise him a little bit because he said something else in another context related to the Commerce Department specifically. And I want to get into this Mr. Wonderful thing.
Yep.
Um, Josh, and I want to precede that conversation with something Josh said, where he told us that we don't have metrics for a lot of what the Commerce Department does. We don't go back and look. We say, "Oh, we're going to put money in this loan program or this economic development program or this workforce program, and it's going to produce jobs or it's going to bring businesses. It's going to diversify the economy." All those things that we all want to accomplish. But then we rarely go back and look at like, well, did it accomplish those things? How many jobs were brought in? How many new businesses were brought in? It doesn't seem like, I mean, there are at times hundreds of these programs in commerce. And it's just sometimes I'm scratching my head going, what did North Dakotans benefit from some of this? And obviously our producer Matt Fern did a great one about film grants. And the things I always liked about Matt drilling down on the film grants thing is because I think it illustrated, like it was a case in point, a microcosm for the larger problem of commerce. Now we've got this thing coming in where a company that the Wonder Fund, so the state of North Dakota gave $45 million, and I think the ultimate source of the funds were the federal government, but they passed through the state. The state put them in the Wonder Fund to be managed by Mr. O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from reality television fame. Um, Gave him that to manage it. He turns around and invests it in a company. Well, one of the former employees of the company is now suing that company. And among the accusations that she's making is that, and this is her accusation. So it's, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. It's her side of the story. But she's saying that the Wonder Fund and this company, I think it was Herd Dog. It's like a ear cattle, like electronic digital ear tagging system for cattle. I mean, it sounds cool, but essentially she accuses them of perpetrating a fraud on the state of North Dakota because the whole purpose when the state of North Dakota invests is to benefit the state of North Dakota. So the idea of the Wonder Fund is we're going to invest in companies that are going to do business in North Dakota. This Herd Dog was supposed to open like a headquarters in North Dakota and do manufacturing in North Dakota. The lawsuit alleges that a lot of that hasn't happened. Frankly, my review of it does look like a lot of it was pretty superficial to the extent that they did anything. But this is just another black eye for commerce, Chad, for a department that just continually has one problem after another.
So when Mr. Wonderful came to North Dakota, there felt like there's a little bit of this guy thinks he's better than us from my perspective. Like he
I think
came to
that's
the
right.
state in his private jet and North Dakotans were falling all over. Oh my God, this guy from Shark Tank is going to help us and help our local
Well, it's the
business.
typical North Dakotan thing where like the smartest person in the room is the guy who's not from North Dakota. It's
The
like
guy
that
who
North
shows up on
Dakota
a plane is
self-loathing.
always smarter than us. And it
Yeah.
felt like he didn't care about oversight. He didn't care about the money that's putting in this. And I think this is it coming to fruition. I mean, the stuff that I've read, they didn't open up a headquarters here. We have a bunch of money to this company, and there's no benefit on the ground at this point. This money was supposed to be helping North Dakota companies. Um, Commerce is not good at oversight. They're not good at oversight, and the legislature is not good at providing oversight of commerce's oversight. And something needs to be done to, like, what was the number you said? 80 some odd job producing programs or something like that. And
I think Gallion had the number, and
they just
I'll
dropped,
look.
like, at the end of the session, you've seen the commerce budget, and it's like, let's put 1,000,000 over here and 1,000,000 over here and whatever. You don't know if these programs work. I know there's some legislators who are very, very interested in outcomes, but as an entity, they're not holding them accountable. And, I it's funny, the older I get and I think about when people talk about crony capitalism and all that kind of stuff, and I used to think of that as sort of a far right sort of thing. It's like, man, it's a real problem. When we talk about welfare, it's often corporate welfare. There's a lot of people who come to the state and get a big chunk of money to make a movie or something like that without a lot of oversight. There's nothing wrong with us investing, and we've talked about this. We want to try new things. We think that's good for the state.
I have a tolerance for risk, and I even have some tolerance for losing money, right? Sometimes you invest in something, it just doesn't work out. It's not anybody's fault. That's just the marketplace. It's hard. If everything was a sure thing, investing would be super easy. But not everything's a sure thing. Sometimes you take a risk, it doesn't work out. I have some tolerance for that. If the risk is in service of the state of North Dakota, like if we take a risk on a North Dakota company and they try their best and the market changes or something happens, it just doesn't work out. I have some sympathy for that. I have some tolerance for that. Not a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to just invest in losers all the time, but I'm willing to accept if you're going to get in this game, nobody bats 1,000. So but I don't like the idea of we're just giving it to somebody who's not from here because he's on television. So we're all oohing and on. And then we're investing in people who aren't from here. And they're only kind of superficially going to manufacture a connection to North Dakota to justify the investment. That sucks. By the way, it's 80. The number that Josh used, he said, I quote, I was surprised at Commerce's presentation to the North Dakota Department of Government Efficiency Task Force. He said, I was surprised at Commerce's presentation when they said there's 80 different workforce programs. 80. So you're right.
Yeah. Oh,
And I don't understand how we can have oversight over 80 programs and make sure they're all working and serving the state properly.
And I think, like you, I have some tolerance for risk, but I don't have tolerance for risk that we're not tracking if it's working or not. I'm a big believer is let's try things. If they don't work, let's stop doing them. If they are working, let's invest more into them.
Let's do more of it. Yeah.
And you can't do that with 80 different programs. They're not 80 different programs that are working efficiently to bring in the employees we need into North Dakota. Let's figure out what's working well and invest more money into those.
The solution is so simple. Go down the list of 80. Which ones come up with their metrics? What are we trying to achieve? Which ones are achieving that? Keep those, cut the rest, and take our resources and double down on the things that are working.
And I think you end up with, like, in the commerce, there's people who run programs who, like, they want to keep their programs, right? That's their fiefdom. And so you do have a lot of different programs, but we can't have this program going away because that's Frank's program. And,
the other thing about this is if we're going to do this, we have got to have more oversight about conflicts of interest too. We saw during the primary, the head of the Commerce Department, who was on the ballot as a lieutenant governor candidate, Josh Tigan. I mean, there were all sorts of companies that were tied to his family, tied to himself, and they're getting all sorts of bonus boosts from the state of North Dakota. And I don't think anybody really knows about it until I come along and report on it. And that's not right. That is not right to do.
It's not right, but it's also normal in North Dakota, right? I mean, we've talked a lot about Jason Doctor on this show over the last few years.
He's not unique.
What's that?
He's not unique.
He's just the one that got prosecuted.
Yeah.
And so, when you see the billboards up north from Pritchard and his group going after Doctor, I mean, I have some level of sympathy for Jason Doctor because he was the guy who was used as the poster child for this. But he ain't the first and he's not the last to use his position.
And some of it, I mean, even there we have to have some tolerance. It's a small state.
Right.
Hard to do business in the state without running into a cousin or a brother-in-law or something like that. We have to be transparent about it. And we have to have set down some hard and fast rules for how we handle those conflicts. because they're going to happen. And the fact that they happen sometimes, that in and of itself is not the problem. But it does frustrate me. My argument was for the governor to take commerce down to the studs, and I mean that from a personnel perspective. I mean, and not necessarily like his new cabinet appointee. That guy hasn't been that long, but I mean, if people are being territorial and protecting this, well, they work for the governor,
But
and they don't have to work for the state of North Dakota if they're not going to play ball.
let's be clear, this huge amount of money going to commerce, it's not like it that hasn't been happening for that long. I mean, it's the last 20 years or so, right? I mean, we're not talking about going back to the 1800s and the Commerce Department being a big thing. But I think, we love tourism. We love trying to bring people into the state. But again, we have to be fiscally responsible on how we're spending this money. So I hope that they dive deeper into these programs and maybe not down to the studs, but certainly a little remodel might work.
Well, yeah. I mean, we need to do some pretty significant things. We'll leave it at that. My metaphor might have been a little tough, but I'm ticked about this stuff. And the thing that ticks me off about it is every time there's a scandal like this, every time there's another negative headline, and believe me, I've written some of those headlines. Every time it happens, it makes us harder for us to do good stuff. It
Right.
makes it harder because the voters are not unjustifiably skeptical of it.
So even like thinking about the film grants, obviously, that I agree with you is such a great sort of example. Not a huge sum of money, but a great example. By calling attention to sort of the maybe some shady dealings around those film grants, I guarantee that there's people who read that story like, "Yep, absolutely, we should never do film grants," and
Right.
that's not
And
the
that's
point.
not
That's
the
not the
message.
point. Uh,
I'm not against helping to prime the pump for the film industry in North Dakota. Our producer Matt is a talented filmmaker, and I'd like to see talented people like him, have access to some tools from the state. But I think access should be,
Equal.
open, equal for everybody. And I want to make one other point about Mr. Wonderful, because if you look at the timeline for this, that started at the tail end of the Burgum administration. What
What
did
was
Doug?
Burgum doing at the end of his
What did Doug Burgum have his eye? What prize did Doug Burgum have his eyes on? Well, he wanted to get into national politics. He tried to be president, and then that didn't work. So then he got he went to work, getting a position in the cabinet. Well, who's one of the people who has Donald Trump's ears,
No,
right? Mr.
well,
O'Leary. So I think this O'Leary guy, I think Burgum saw him as a potential ally. And so, and thought, oh, we'll bring him into the state. He's a celebrity. The taxpayers will love it. Everybody will go nuts. And maybe it worked out great for Doug Burgum. Maybe O'Leary was great for him, as he kind of wormed his way into the Trump cabinet. But was this good for the state of North Dakota? Is this benefiting North Dakotans? No. And if we're measuring, the metrics for this stuff, what other metric is there?
right. And again, if it's a program that's supposed to benefit North Dakotans, why are we handing the keys to this big chunk of money to some TV celebrity? We have plenty of smart people right here in North Dakota that can invest this money in smart ways. I don't think when the legislature said, "Hey, let's put this money into North Dakota businesses," they were thinking, we should go to CNBC at 8 o'clock at night and just look at the Shark Tank folks to figure out who to give the money to.
I think that there are smart people with really cool ideas in the state of North Dakota who we ought to be focusing our help on. And again, maybe not all those ideas are going to work out, but if we're going to take risks, I want to risk on North Dakotans and
And you
not,
know, you know what allows those North Dakotans to take more risks? They can afford their damn health insurance.
well, that too. Hey, Chad, I don't know if you're noticing, we are very popular with the Tony demographic in the state of North Dakota. We have all the Tonys who listen to our show. Last show, we had a text from Anthony in Bismarck. Today, we have a text from Tony in
What
Grand Forks.
wasn't there an 80s like R&B group called Tony, Tony, Tony?
It could
That should
be.
be our theme song, something like
That sounds familiar. Though for the life of me, I couldn't name you one of their songs.
Neither could I.
Maybe they're great. I've just I don't remember them. Let's talk about Tony from Grand Forks. And by the way, if you want to leave a voicemail, send us a text. The number 701-587-3141. Tony from Grand Forks writes, "Hey, Rob and Chad, my name's Tony. I'm from Grand Forks. I was listening to episode 651. You guys make a great point about rising bankruptcies of family farms and how those won't come back after corporations and wealthy individuals gobble them up. Not to worry, though. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent let us know he's actually a soybean farmer and is feeling the pain. In actuality, he owns $25 million worth of farmland in North Dakota that he rents out to our farmers. I'm sure he wouldn't have any interest in causing more farms to go bankrupt for him to buy after encouraging the president to continue his trade war, though. Let me tell you,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you heard the sarcasm there at the end of that text message.
yeah.
But
Maybe I need to change my inflection a little bit.
no, you delivered it just fine. But I just
Did
want
I?
to make sure that people understand that I don't think Tony is a fan of Mr. Bennett.
That's how I read it too, and I hope the sarcasm came through because I was laying it on pretty thick. I want to make a point too about Scott Bessent claiming he's a soybean farmer. He is not a soybean farmer. He is a landlord. He's not farming anything. What he's doing is he's renting out land for other people's to farm. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't claim that you're something that you're not. And yeah, I mean, I think, Tony makes a great point. This trade war's a killer. And to be honest with you, I don't begrudge Scott Bessent his larger point, which is that people who work in the ag industry, landlords are affected too. They're feeling the pinch from the tariffs. Maybe that's an illustration that the tariffs are a bad idea. I don't know.
I'm not sure if the Trump administration is trying to provide a messenger to reach out to farmers and ranchers that this guy with, mansions all over the world claiming to be a soybean farmer is the right messenger.
Yeah. It reminds me of when Ted Conrad was the senator from North Dakota and lived in a Delaware beach house. Meanwhile, here in North Dakota, he lived in a fourplex with Byron Dorgan, supposedly.
Listen, first of all, you made it sound like they lived in the same apartment. They were separate apartments in the same fourplex.
Across the hall from one another.
But the other point I will make, having a beach house is different than claiming to be a soybean farmer and owning mansions all over the world. But
yeah,
agree to disagree there.
Okay, fair enough. That being said, Mr. Bessent is full of it, and I'm sure there were farmers sitting at home, looking at crop prices, looking at the skyrocketing price of equipment and everything else, thanks to the tariffs and the trade wars and all that, and thinking to themselves, at least Scott Bessent knows our pain. I feel comforted.
He's right there with us.
What a joke. What a joke. Hey, you can get in on the action. 701-587-3141. Leave us a voicemail. Send us a text. You can also follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, X, @PlainTalkND is our tag.
Rob, do you have to be named Tony to text us, or can
you don't?
Okay,
you could be named any damn thing. You could be Jehoshaphat. You could be I'm trying to think, what are some other really good names? Bartholomew. You don't hear a lot of Bartholomews, but I think Bart is really cool. Isn't Bart, Bart's kind of a cool name?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would agree it's a cool name, but I kind of like Bartholomew.
Bartholomew?
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. Your name could be Noah. Your name could be Matt. You could be Chad. You could be Rob. You can be anybody you want.
You could also have a girl's name too, Rob. Do you know?
Yeah.
You know any girl names?
I can't believe I did that. Yes, girls. Chelsea, Linda. I don't know, anybody. Anybody could participate. Boy, I don't know. Boy, thanks for calling me out for being a sex. I was accidentally.
You're very welcome. I think
inadvertently sexist there for a minute.
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry. I will not be here next week.
Oh, that's right. Who's that? Pat Finken's sitting in. That's right. Pat Finken's sitting in. That'll be fun. I don't know who the guests are going to be yet. I don't like to book that far out in advance, but yeah, Pat Finken will be sitting in next week. That should be a lot of fun.
Hey, let's make bets. By the time you and Pat record on Wednesday, will the government be back open? I say yes.
I think it will be. I think those elections sent a message. They're going to have to get something done. I think it's just a question of how much are the Republicans going to cave at this point. Yeah. Because right now all the hurt's on one side of the table. You look at the polling too. Americans aren't blaming Democrats for this.
Trump knows this. I mean, Trump said during I think it was during the Obama shutdowns that they always blame the president.
Yeah,
they do.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk again. That's it for today on Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. Plain Talk is a production of Forum Communications Company. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave us a voicemail or send us a text message at 701-587-3141. That's 701-587-3141. If you haven't subscribed to Plain Talk yet, you can find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For those of you who are already hooked, give us a rating or review. And don't forget to share or tell a friend. Special thanks to my co-host Chad Oban, and from myself and everyone at Plain Talk, thanks for listening. John Gottfried is great.